Hello, I'm Chris, the Tabletop Fox, and welcome to my video on Halo Flashpoint, particularly the UNSC faction and reviewing their units and how they are in Season 1. In this video we're going to be looking at the Zvezda, the OG Grandpa Spartan of Halo Flashpoint, and we'll get into what that is in a moment. So the Zvezda is a less popular pick. Barely got seen in Season 0 because, in truth, Season 0, dying wasn't a bad thing. It was actually a benefit a lot of the time. Movement was a thing you really wanted, and so the Zvezda was very counteractive to that because his base move is 1 and his sprint is still 3. However, also in Season 0 there was guaranteed pin from frag, and fragging was very common, which meant Zvezda was going to always have major issues. Moving on to Season 1, things have changed. He has got better, but he has got his struggles still. He is still a 1-3 model, the stats have not changed, but a few things have that go in his favour. So 1, Scout had a change up, and that was a model with a base 1 move that respawns on a respawn point, gains crouch for free, which a Zvezda is. We also then had it become Husky, where dying is a problem because it gives points to the opponent. Still, dying can be favourable to you, but at the very least staying alive has benefits now. And so having that 4-up save is a large benefit, especially when you tie it to also getting the extra dice against shoot attacks with crouch that you're going to get for free and can keep as long as you keep moving around like a slug. That 4-up save also has a major other benefit thanks to changes to Season 1, which was that frag became not guaranteed. You had to tie or beat the opponent on successes when it came to rolling the frag runes versus their save. And because of that 4-up save, Zvezda has a good chance to not get pinned. It's not great because frag is on 4-up and it wins at ties. So unless it's 3v3, you're unlikely to have a great chance. But there's a chance, and elites know this very well. So with that, now his ability to sprint is there a bit more often. He does lose his crouch though, he gets for free, so there is that negative to that now. His 1 speed is still there, but depending on the mode you're having, that can be not too problematic. Because if you're playing it as a more defensive role, such as Illusion, or playing as a shooting unit while someone else is getting the flag in something like Siege, it's not the worst to have that movement be slower. Even stuff like Headhunter or VIP, you don't need to be getting around the board if you're a shooting unit. It's mainly when you get stuff like King of the Hill, Extraction, that it becomes a problem, or Strongholds even, because you need to be getting to those objectives and you want to be having as many bodies that can get to it as possible, especially from respawns where in King of the Hill and Extraction, a 1 base speed model is going to have struggles getting on the objective because they'll need a grapple and a move dice rather than a 2 move model which just needs a grapple or a move dice to get back onto those objectives from respawn. So does the Zvezda have play? Well, he went down in points, which really helped his case. And then they released ODSTs, which kind of killed that case a fair bit. Because he's got that survivability. But we now have cheaper ODSTs with more lethality. And they do die more, which is a positive and negative to them that we'll get into when we touch on them. But the cheapness is what made the Hazops so big last season, and also what could have made the Zvezda so good this season. Because letting the rest of your team become stronger, while also not being a problematic part to the team, is a very good trait to have. And again, it's where the Hazop was really good at, because he was very useful last season and cheap, so the rest of the team could be better. And the Zvezda can be that, but it is that competition from the ODSTs that really makes it a problem. Depending on the mode you're going into, I'd say things like if you had a Headhunter with VIP, Illusion as 3 of the modes, I think a Zvezda could be really good. because in Illusion you have him to sit back, holding, pinning, trying to kill stuff. Maybe even give him a weapon just to make him a bit more effective. In VIP, if he gets the VIP on him, he's tough to kill because that 4-up save alongside Spartan base defenses, 2 armor, 2 shields. And in Headhunter, the same. He has range, he can stay back, he's hard to kill, and to be honest, sucking up all those skulls, you can allow someone else to be doing that. And Zvezda can still do it on a sprint if he's not pinned. So there is play with him, but it's a struggle, and I don't feel his base weapons help him a huge deal. They're not terrible, but they're not anything to write home about, and that doesn't really help him. If he came with, say, like a BR75 as a base, then suddenly that Zvezda becomes incredibly useful. And that kind of is where the ODSTs push on him and his position in fire teams. So going into the weapons, we have the Commando, which is the recon version of the Zvezda, and it's a solid gun. It has optics, it has rapid fire, and it's range 6. That is it, but those are solid. So it's very good at long range pinning, especially since he has a 4-up shoot. It's getting that bonus from him having the free crouch. So off a respawn, you're coming in, free crouch and optics, your minimum is 5 dice. Now, where the struggle comes from this is the lack of lethality. So, because it's got no AP, no ESD, it needs a lot to kill tankier things. And that's where he kind of struggles a bit. Going back, that he doesn't bring anything like tack to the list either, so he's not kind of helping fill in, giving himself some extra shoot to make being able to shoot that twice, which might then do something. But again, because you have no AP and armor persists, so ESD is good early, but once those shields are gone, it's not that great. AP is always good because armor doesn't go down outside of if they have a hard light shield on. So if you shoot again with a gun with no AP, then you have the same issue of having to get through that armor even if the shields are gone. So it's not that lethal. He really would probably need another gun if you want him to be really useful in that. Otherwise you're probably going to use him more of a pinning weapon or shooting some ODSTs with the hope of killing them. So going with that, I would either not run a weapon on him if you want to keep him as a cheap option, mainly as a pinning guy, or I'd probably put on the Covenant Carbine and the BR75. I'd probably favour the Covenant Carbine purely because he's already got pinning built into his base gun. So then you get the options of you can knock back them or you can pin them. And that is a really good combo to have. So item wise, stuff that helps with movement can be really useful, grapples and thrusters. The only problem there being if you take those, you are taking them away from other units, and if you're running this boy, you probably want someone who can get about the field. So there's a good chance they might not be available. Otherwise, it's looking at lethal ammo, threat sensor. The being there is it's similar to the Deadeye where it lets him make sure he can shoot. So if you are giving him a gun, you're probably giving him those. Again, if you're not going with a gun, you might just run him with no arms at all, or you might even give him a hard light, just to be a pain to kill. You could give him a hard light and a camo if you really will go into modes like VIP or kill modes where you just want him to be an ever-present pain to kill, because those things combined would be just a menace for them to try and kill. However, camo, maybe a bit less because he's not got anything like tack, and it will go as soon as he shoots again. So it's not like he's keeping anything alive by him staying alive in that regard with the camo. So it's probably looking more just putting the hard light on in that case. But then we are starting to get into quite a bit of points territory for our cheap unit. And there is the problem that he lies in, is he can be a cheap unit that's moderately effective, or he can get some stuff added and become decently effective, but then he can start racking up those point costs. On the other hand, we have the Cindershot version, and this gun is almost good, and it's somewhat disappointing because of that. So it is a grenade weapon, so it does not require line of sight, which is great, especially when you're a one move model, because that means if you get stuck behind a wall, you can still shoot things. Now, the problem comes in when we get to the actual part after this. It's implosion. Implosion 5, so it's a lot of dice, but it's never going to be able to pin or knock back, so it loses out in utility massively there. And also shooting into something like Elite is dangerous because it's pretty much guaranteeing they will get an evade if it doesn't kill them, and it's not as likely to kill them because it's on 5 dice for 4s, they have 3 dice on 4s, so it's ESD 1, so it needs 2 to get through the shields already. It has no AP either, which means it needs 1 to get through their armor, so you'll need 3 successes over them, which is likely what you're coming out with anyway. So you're not doing any wounds in that situation, and you're not pinning them. Add in, it has lethal 1, but as I've mentioned multiple times now, if you've got no AP, so you're not getting through armor, lethal has issues because then you're never getting the C lethal unless you get through. And so it can work, it's got its uses. It's oddly 1 point higher than the Commando, and I'd say the Commando has a general better gist to it. But as I said, not being able to need line of sight is a big thing. Range 4 with grenade launchers is one of these weird ranges where it can be a problem. It can sometimes be good, but when you've only got 1 move, your range is pretty much 5 unless you're using a grapple move dice to be able to get closer. So it is in one of those odd areas. Personally, probably looking at putting on like a BR75 on him if you're going to put a weapon on, because that gives the lethality and the pinning and helps gain the benefit of the crouch, while you can still use then the grenade launcher if you've got no line of sight. But then we go over to items. It's about the same, grapple and thruster if they're available, which they're likely not to be if you're running this boy in a team. And hard light making more difficult to kill, because this one could become very pain in the ass to kill, because he respawns, gets crouched behind a wall, firing off grenades, and with the hard light, if he's your VIP, then it's incredible. If you could pick your VIP, he would be very good if that was in the mode selection, but because it's random, it's a risky one where if he doesn't become your VIP and it's one of your good killing units, then he becomes a bit more dead weight with all that put into him to make him live longer. So, touching on all that, Zvezda. It's better than it was last season. I can see places for it to get play, but it's very narrow, that places it can get play. And because of the ODSTs existing, especially the ODST Special Purpose Troopers, it has a major difficulty in finding a place in teams, because it doesn't have the cheapest of cheap points to it to get in as that. It doesn't have a huge deal of help with the objectives, other than if holding objectives, which if there comes a time when you have to hold down a objective, and that's in a lot of modes, then he's going to be decent, as long as he doesn't have to move much to get there. And he does lack in the lethality, which again the ODST Special Purpose Troopers actually don't. Though the ODSTs have to make up for their fragility, which the Zvezda does not. But as I mentioned, sometimes dying is a positive for you in this game, even when you're giving up a point now for it. So generally, Zvezda, it's a solid unit. It hasn't got a huge amount of play right now. You can definitely include it in a list. I don't think having more than one is a good idea. I think having one, if you wanted to go all Spartans, have that snapshot, have a decently tanky team with no weak liabilities that ODSTs are when it comes to being shot at, then he is a good position to take that full spot. If you're running a 3-man team, he's not going to fit in very well, because I feel it's just, you need something more. You need more out of each of your activations in that situation. But give him a go. I might need to give him some more goes just to get a better feel for him, to be fair. But at the moment, just on pure knowledge I have for the game, it's just not something I can viably see to put into a tournament list to practice with and try out. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and If there's anything you disagree with in my thoughts about the unit, or anything you think I missed, please feel free to let me know in the comments. But with that, I've been the Tabletop Fox. I hope you have a lovely day, and ta-ra!